"Excuse me, would you mind if I took your photograph?" "Not for anything." "Just because your face tells a story, I don't want to walk past." He said it quietly, crouching down to her level on the cold concrete of Aldine Street, his camera hanging loose around his neck, his voice carrying none of the condescension that people sometimes mistake for kindness when they speak to someone sitting on the ground. He had learned, early and permanently, that the way you lower yourself to someone's level is the most honest thing about you. He was fully crouched, weight on his heels, camera untouched, eyes on her face. Not the camera. Her face. The woman looked up slowly. She was sitting against the brick wall of an old building on the quieter end of Aldine Street, a few blocks from where the Saturday market wound down and the city resumed its ordinary indifference. She had a gray wool blanket across her lap despite the mild October morning, a paper cup of coffee beside her that had gone cold, and the particular stillness of someone who had been sitting in public long enough to become invisible to the people passing. She wore a knit hat pulled low, a coat that had seen better years, worn shoes. Her face was weathered in the way faces weather when they've been outside a lot, not aged exactly, but marked, considered. The kind of face that held its history on the surface rather than beneath it. She looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were the color of river stones, gray-green, clear, entirely alert. Not the eyes of someone adrift, the eyes of someone watching. "Most people don't ask," she said. Her voice was low and unhurried. "They just take it and keep walking." "I know," he said. "I've never understood that." She tilted her head slightly. "What do you see that made you stop?" He thought about this honestly. "The way you're sitting," he said. "Like you're not waiting for anything. Like you're just present. Most people are always leaning toward somewhere else. You're not." She was quiet for a moment. "You see a lot." "It's what I do," he said. "Or try to do," he paused. "My name is Stellan Voss. I'm a photographer." "Odalis," she said. Just the one name, offered simply like a thing she'd decided was enough. "May I, Odalis?" He touched the camera briefly. "I won't use it for anything without your permission. If you want the photograph, I'll print one for you. If you don't want it taken, I'll put the camera away and we can just talk." She studied him for another moment. Then she straightened slightly against the wall, not posing, just settling into herself more fully, the way people do when they've decided to be present for something. "All right," she said. "Go ahead." Stellan Voss was 33 years old, and he had been a photographer for 11 of those years, professionally for 6, and struggling for most of the 6. Not struggling in the dramatic sense, not dramatically hungry, not visibly desperate, but struggling in the quiet, grinding way that creative people struggle when the world has a clear idea of what it wants and their work keeps producing something slightly different. What the world wanted, in his experience of it, was clean, bright, aspirational, product launches, corporate headshots, the kind of editorial work where everyone looked like a better version of themselves and the light was always flattering and nothing difficult appeared in the frame. He could do that work. He had done it when he needed the income, and he was competent at it. And it left him feeling hollowed out in the specific way that competent work done against your instincts leaves you hollow. What he wanted, what he had always wanted, since his father had first put a camera in his hands when he was 8 years old and said, "Go find something true," was to photograph people. Real people, in real light, in the unguarded moments that most cameras looked away from. He wanted the face of a woman on a street corner who had just remembered something important. He wanted the hands of a man who had worked with them his whole life. He wanted grief and patience and quiet joy and the particular expression people had when they thought no one was watching. His father, Mercer Voss, had been a documentary photographer. Not famous, not published in the places that made people famous, but deeply good, in the way that people are good at things they love completely. He had died when Stellan was 22, a cardiac event that came without warning. And what he had left behind was a wall of photographs in the apartment on Kelsey Street, and a son who carried his way of looking at the world like a language learned before words. His mother, Dorothea, still lived in that apartment. She worked from home doing medical transcription and called him every Sunday and said, without fail, Your father always said the right work finds the right person. Be patient. He believed her. He was trying to keep believing her. He had 3 ongoing clients who gave him work intermittently. He shot weddings occasionally, which he was good at because he knew how to find the quiet moments inside the loud ones. He had a portfolio website that got a modest number of visitors and occasional inquiries that mostly came to nothing. He shot on a mid-range mirrorless camera he had saved for over 8 months, and he carried it everywhere, because his father had told him that the best photographs happened when you hadn't planned for them. He had not planned for Odalis. He raised the camera slowly, giving her time to settle, and found her in the frame. The light on Aldine Street at 9:40 in the morning was what photographers called open shade, soft, directionless, the kind that reveals without dramatizing. It was falling across her from the left, catching the texture of her coat and the lines around her eyes and the particular quality of her stillness. He adjusted his position slightly, lowering another inch, changing the angle so the brick wall behind her became a soft texture rather than a hard line. He took 3 photographs. Not 20, not 30, 3. He looked at each shot briefly in the viewfinder and made one small adjustment between the second and third. Then he lowered the camera. "That's it?" she said. "That's it." He turned the camera so she could see the screen and scrolled to the last frame. She looked at it for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable in the way that expressions are unreadable when they're doing too many things at once. Then she looked up at him. "That's what you see?" she said. "That's what's there," he said. She was quiet again. Then, "You said you'd print one." "I will." "Can I bring it back?" "Same time next Saturday, same place?" He paused. "Or I can mail it if you have an address." "Next Saturday is fine," she said. Her eyes had shifted slightly. Something in them had moved, turned, like a door opening inward. He noticed it without naming it and filed it somewhere in the back of his attention. He stood. "Thank you, Odalis." "I mean that." She looked up at him from the ground with those riverstone eyes. "You're the first person in a long time who asked before taking something," she said. "I won't forget that." He nodded once and walked back into the city. He printed the photograph that evening in his apartment on Fenwick Road, a 3rd-floor walk-up with good north light and walls, covered in contact sheets and prints pinned at various heights, organized by some system that made sense to him and looked like chaos to everyone else. His printing setup was modest but precise. A mid-range photo printer, archival paper he ordered in bulk to manage the cost, a color calibration process he had learned from his father and refined over years. He printed it at 8 by 10. The photograph was, even by his own measured assessment, extraordinary. Not because of any technical achievement. The light had done most of the work, but because of what was in her face. There was a quality to it that he had no good word for. Not sadness, not strength exactly. Something in between. Something that suggested a person who had seen enough of the world to have stopped being surprised by it, and had found in that a particular kind of peace. She looked in the photograph like someone who knew something that most people were still trying to figure out. He looked at it for a long time. Then he pinned it to the wall with the others and went to bed. He brought it back the following Saturday. She was there. Same place, same wall, different coat. She took the print with both hands and looked at it in the morning light. For a long time she didn't speak. "Do you know what this is?" she said finally. "A photograph," he said. "Of you." "No." She looked up. "This is honesty. You don't see many people working in honesty anymore." She held the print carefully. "Most people who photograph people like me, they're photographing poverty. They're photographing difficulty. They want the viewer to feel something about a situation." She paused. "You photographed a person." "Just a person." He sat down on the edge of the low wall across from her. "That's the only kind of photograph I know how to take," he said. "My father taught me that you're not photographing what you see. You're photographing what the person in front of you is. Your father sounds like someone worth listening to." He was. A pause. "He died when I was 22. She looked at him. "I'm sorry." "He left me the camera," Stellan said. "And the way of looking. I think that's most of what I am." They sat in the October quiet. A bus moved past the end of the street. Somewhere nearby, someone was selling coffee from a cart and the smell of it drifted over. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Yes." "Your work. Do people buy it?" "Commission it." He smiled, a small, honest one. "Some, not enough. The kind I want to do doesn't fit neatly into what people are looking for commercially. I do corporate work to pay the rent and try to do the real work in between." "The real work being this," she said, "the print." "The real work being this," he agreed. She folded the print carefully along its length and placed it inside her coat, close to her body, the way you carry something you intend to keep. "You should keep going," she said. "The work that doesn't fit neatly is usually the work that matters most." He looked at her. There was something in the way she said it. Not encouragement exactly, but knowledge. The particular knowledge of someone who had seen enough of a subject to speak with authority. "You sound like someone who knows the art world," he said. She smiled. It was the first time he'd seen her smile. It changed her face entirely, opened something in it. "A little," she said. "Here and there." He didn't push. He had learned that the most interesting people revealed themselves in their own time, and that pressing was a way of closing doors. "Same time next week?" he said. "I have some other prints I'd like to show you, if that's okay." She looked at him with those clear eyes. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that." They met 4 more Saturdays in a row. He brought prints. She looked at them with the focused, specific attention of someone who knew what they were looking at. Not casually, not politely, but with the eye of a person who had spent serious time around serious work. She asked precise questions about his choice of moment within a sequence, about why he had or hadn't cropped a particular frame, about the quality of light he had been working with and what he had done to use or resist it. She knew the vocabulary. She used it naturally, without display. He began to notice this. He began to understand that she was not who she appeared to be on this street corner. Or rather, that she was entirely who she appeared to be and also something more, something adjacent that he couldn't yet see the shape of. He didn't ask. He waited. On the 5th Saturday, she wasn't there. He waited for 40 minutes, sitting on the low wall with his camera bag between his feet and the late morning light moving slowly across the brick. Then he walked back to his apartment, mildly unsettled in a way he couldn't fully account for. He had known her for 5 weeks. They had talked for maybe 6 hours total. She had given him nothing but her first name and a quality of attention that he hadn't found anywhere else in his adult life. He printed 3 more photographs that evening and looked at them for a long time without pinning them up. The invitation arrived by email on a Wednesday, 3 weeks after the Saturday she hadn't come. The subject line read, "Invitation, opening night, Voss Collection, Harlow Gallery, Friday, 7 p.m. His name in the subject line. He read it twice before the words assembled into meaning. He opened it. "Dear Mr. Voss, you are cordially invited to the opening of a curated exhibition of your photographic work at Harlow Gallery, 114 Mercer Street. The exhibition, titled Unseen Portraits of the Present, features 12 of your photographs selected for their exceptional honesty and humanity. We would be honored by your presence at the opening on Friday evening." The Harlow Gallery. He sat at his kitchen table for a very long time. Then, he called his mother. "Mama," he said. "Stellan." Her voice immediately changed, the particular frequency mothers reach when they hear something in their child's voice that hasn't been there before. "What happened?" "Something good," he said. "Something I don't understand yet, but good." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Your father always said the right work finds the right person." He closed his eyes. "I know," he said. "I know." He arrived at Harlow Gallery on Friday evening at 6:50. 10 minutes early, wearing the good jacket he saved for occasions and carrying nothing because he didn't know what to bring. The gallery was on Mercer Street, a converted ground-floor space in a building that had once been a textile warehouse. With high ceilings and wide plank floors and the kind of clean white walls that made photographs breathe, there were already people inside. Not a crowd, A gathering, the particular kind that art openings had when they were attended by people who actually came for the work rather than the occasion. He stood at the entrance for a moment and looked at the near wall, his photographs. 12 of them, printed large, much larger than he ever printed at home, matted in white, framed in thin natural wood, lit with a precision that made them look like they were generating their own light. He walked toward them slowly. The first 3 were street portraits he recognized. A man with a produce cart on Delmore Avenue, an elderly woman reading on a park bench with her glasses on her forehead, a child looking up at something outside the frame with an expression of pure astonishment. He had taken these over the past 2 years. He had shown them to no one except his mother. The 4th photograph stopped him entirely. It was Dallas, the photograph from Aldine Street. Printed at 18 by 24, the largest in the exhibition, hung at the center of the long wall where the eye went first when entering the space. In this scale, at this resolution, it was almost overwhelming. Her face so present, so entirely itself. The October light so honest across her features. The quality of her stillness so specific and so real that several people standing near it were leaning in without realizing they were doing it. Beneath it, the caption card read, Dallas, Aldine Street, October. To be seen is to be real. He stood in front of it for a long time. It's the best one. The voice came from his left. He turned. She was standing 4 feet away, and she was not wearing a knit hat or a worn coat or sitting against a brick wall. She was wearing a dark green dress, structured and quiet, her silver-streaked hair pulled back, her riverstone eyes exactly as he remembered them. She was holding a glass of wine and standing in the gallery with the particular ease of someone who was completely at home in it. He looked at her. He looked around the gallery, at the walls, the lighting, the precise placement of his work, the small brass placard near the entrance that read, Harlow Gallery, founded and directed by Dallas Fenmore Hatch. He looked back at her. She was watching him work through it with an expression that was almost, not quite, but almost an apology. You own this gallery, he said. Yes, you were on Aldine Street. Yes. She set her glass down on a nearby ledge. I do it periodically. Walk the city as someone the city ignores. I want to see who stops, who asks, who sees a person and not a circumstance, she paused. Most people don't stop. In 11 years of doing this, I can count on one hand the people who ask permission before raising a camera. He was quiet, processing. He was not angry. He was aware of that clearly, checking it, finding it absent. He was something more complicated, moved, unsettled, deeply curious. You were testing people, he said. Not testing, she said carefully. Observing. There's a difference. Testing implies I was trying to catch someone failing. I was looking for something specific and I found it when I found you. She looked at the photograph on the wall. You asked if you could take my photograph. You said you didn't want to walk past my face. You crouched down to my level before you said a word. And then you came back the next week with a print. She turned to him. Do you know how rare that is? He looked at the photograph. At his photograph, printed enormous on the wall of a gallery on Mercer Street. At the woman in the image and the woman beside him, the same person, different contexts, equally real. The photographs, he said. How did you get them? Your website. And the Saturday prints you brought to show me, I photographed them with my phone while you were looking the other way. She said this without apology. I wanted to see the full body of work before I made a decision. He absorbed this. Then, despite everything, he laughed, a short, genuine sound. You photographed my photographs. It seemed efficient. He shook his head, smiling now, the particular smile of someone being pulled along by something larger than they'd planned for. He looked around the gallery again, at his work on these walls, at the people moving through it slowly, pausing, leaning in. Why? He asked. Why me? There are photographers far more established. Established photographers have usually learned to give people what they expect, she said. You give people what's true. She looked at him steadily. Your photograph of me is the most honest portrait I have ever seen of myself. And I have been in the art world for 12 years. She paused. I cried when I looked at it. I don't cry easily. He was quiet for a moment. He thought of his father saying, "Go find something true." He thought of his mother on Sunday mornings. He thought of 6 years of corporate headshots and wedding photography and the hollow feeling of competent work done wrong. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you," she said. "The exhibition runs for 6 weeks. I've already had 3 collectors ask about the Aldine Street portrait specifically. It's not for sale, I've told them, but they want to know who you are. I have 2 other galleries I have relationships with, in Chicago and San Francisco, who are looking for photographers for group shows in the spring. And I'd like to commission a full portrait series from you. Your terms, your subjects, your vision. Paid appropriately." She paused. "None of this is contingent on anything except your work being what it is." Which it is. He stood in the middle of his own exhibition in a gallery on Mercer Street, looking at 12 photographs he had taken over 6 years of trying to do the right work, and felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for a very long time. "I want to call my mother," he said. Odalis smiled. The full one. The one that changed everything about her face. "Of course," she said. "I'll get you a glass of wine for when you come back." He stepped outside onto Mercer Street into the October evening and called Dorothea Voss. She answered on the second ring. "Stellan, Mama," he said. "I need to tell you something." "Tell me." He looked back through the gallery window at his photographs on the white walls, at the people moving through them, at Odalis talking to a collector and gesturing toward the large portrait on the center wall. He thought about a Saturday morning on Aldine Street. A woman sitting against a brick wall with riverstone eyes and a stillness that he had not been able to walk past. A camera raised with permission. A print delivered the following week, carried home inside a coat close to the body the way you carry something you intend to keep. "Do you remember what Dad used to say?" he said. "About the right work?" "Finding the right person," she said softly. "Yes, I remember. I think it happened," he said. "I think it finally happened." She was quiet for a moment. And then he heard it. The small sound of a woman trying not to cry in a way that meant she was crying. And he stood on Mercer Street in the October cold with his eyes closed and thought about his father, and the camera and the way of looking, and felt him there, the way the dead are there sometimes, in the moments they would have loved. "He would have been so proud," Dorothea said. "I know," Stellan said. "I know. The exhibition ran for 8 weeks, extended by 3 days due to demand. The Aldine Street portrait was reproduced in 2 arts publications and 1 general interest magazine, which ran it with a half-page caption about the emerging photographer Stellan Voss and his project documenting the unseen lives of urban Americans. The photograph was credited simply Odalis. Permission given. He did the commission series over the following year. 18 portraits, each one taken with permission, each subject given a printed copy, each sitting preceded by a conversation, and followed by whatever time the person wanted to spend looking at their own image. He photographed a retired schoolteacher in her kitchen, a night shift hospital porter on his break, a 12-year-old boy who had won a chess tournament in a community center gym, a woman who sold flowers from a cart on Prescott Street and had been doing it for 23 years. He photographed people the world had learned to look past, and he made them impossible to look past. The series was titled Present. It toured 4 cities. It was reviewed in terms that made Stellan feel each time he read them that the reviewers were describing something slightly larger than photography. One review ended. Voss does not photograph subjects. He photographs the experience of being seen. He kept that one. He sent it to his mother. She called immediately and read it back to him in full, slowly, as though it needed to be spoken aloud to be completely real. He continued shooting. He continued the Saturday mornings in the city, walking with his camera, looking for faces that told stories the world was walking past. He still did some commercial work when the income was needed, but less each year, and each year the real work took up more space, and the hollow feeling became something he only remembered from a distance. Odalis continued directing the gallery. Their working relationship was professional and warm, and built on the kind of mutual respect that comes from two people who have seen each other clearly from the beginning. She sitting on the ground, him crouching to her level, both of them finding in that moment something they'd been quietly looking for. They did not become anything other than what they were. They didn't need to. What they had, a creative trust, a shared vocabulary, a friendship built on honesty and the particular intimacy of people who have seen each other without their usual protections, was complete as it was. Some connections don't need to be more than what they are. Some are already enough. 2 years after the opening night on Mercer Street, Stellan returned to Aldine Street on a Saturday morning. He wasn't looking for anything specific. He walked the block slowly, camera around his neck. The October light falling at the same angle it had fallen that first morning, and he stopped at the stretch of brick wall where she had been sitting. A different person was there now. An older man with a canvas bag and a paperback book, reading in the thin morning sun. He looked up when Stellan stopped. "Good morning," Stellan said. "Morning," the man said. "Would you mind if I took your photograph?" The man looked at him. At the camera. Back at him. "Why?" he said. "Because," Stellan said. "You look like you're exactly where you're supposed to be, and I don't want to walk past that." The man considered this for a moment. Then he closed his book, straightened slightly, not posing, just settling into himself more fully, and said, "All right." "Go ahead." Stellan raised the camera, found the light, waited for the moment that was true. He took 3 photographs. The moral of this story lives in the space between a camera raised without permission and one raised with it, in the difference between taking and asking, between seeing a situation and seeing a person. Stellan Voss found his life's work not by chasing success, but by extending dignity to someone the world had decided was not worth stopping for. That single act, crouching down, asking permission, speaking to her face and not her circumstances, set off a chain of connection that changed everything. Not because kindness is a strategy, but because the world recognizes, in its slow and certain way, the people who have learned to see truly. And it finds them. Eventually, it always finds them. See the person, not the circumstance. That is where all the real work begins. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let's spread more stories of kindness and hope together.